All right, this week, 5 Republican senators sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland demanding access to all communications between the Department of Justice and the American Medical Association. This was in follow-up to the AMA's request that the department investigate what they call disinformation campaigns against gender-altering surgeries on children. It's not difficult to see why these senators, or anyone else for that matter, would be troubled by the actions of this Department of Justice. Now, will this pattern of abusing investigative authority silence critics and stifle policy debates? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is one of the authors of the letter, Texas Senator Ted Cruz. He serves on 6 committees in the Senate, including the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator Cruz, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Tony, always good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
All right, from reading the letter, it seems like you are concerned that this specific incident with the AMA, but perhaps more concerning, this is a pattern that we see from the Biden Justice Department. Tell us about it.
Well, this is really an intersection of 2 things that are deeply troubling. One is the politicization of the Department of Justice and the FBI under Joe Biden. And I have to say, Merrick Garland as Attorney General, I think, has done more damage to the integrity of DOJ and the FBI than any Attorney General in history. He has acquiesced in using DOJ as a partisan enforcement tool. And we saw that strikingly early in the Biden administration when the National Association of School Boards sent a letter to the White House asking for the Department of Justice to target parents, target moms and dads going to school boards and exercising their First Amendment rights and expressing concern about teaching critical race theory, about transgender ideology, about failure to protect kids from sexual assault. And Merrick Garland, 5 days later, wrote a memo to the FBI directing the FBI to target parents, to treat them essentially as domestic terrorists using the Patriot Act. And it was blatantly politicized. It was wrong. Now, in this instance, we have that willingness to politicize DOJ intersecting with the left's radical ideology on transgenderism, and in particular, the horrific practice that we are seeing more and more of so-called hospitals engaging in genital mutilation of children, and in some instances, young children, giving them hormones that permanently alter their body, that sterilize them. And here, the AMA is asking DOJ to similarly abuse its power, but in this case, to go after anyone, to go after reporters, to go after you or me if we shine a light on the horrific practices being carried out by these so-called hospitals. And it is, I think, an incredibly dangerous invitation to an abuse of power by the Biden DOJ.
No question that it is an abuse of power, but also isn't it a misdirection of resources? When you consider, we're talking about activities that are actually protected under the Constitution. We're talking about parents concerned about what's happening at school boards. We're parents that may be concerned about children being mutilated, as you've pointed out, through this gender transition surgeries. And then we've got over a dozen pro-lifers in the last 3 weeks, pro-life advocates who have been exercising First Amendment freedoms outside of abortion clinics have been arrested under the FACE Act by the Biden administration, while America is awash with lawlessness, murder rates going up in major cities all across this country. This is outrageous that they're focused on people exercising their freedom while criminals run rampant.
Look, you're exactly right. This is the Department of Justice that can't be bothered to go after Black Lives Matter rioters or Antifa rioters. It can't be bothered to go after terrorists or violent protesters outside the homes of Supreme Court justices, even though it's against federal law. They don't enforce the law in any of those instances. But when it comes to pro-life activists, they will send an army of FBI agents to open up the door, guns drawn, and arrest them. And it's naked politicization of DOJ and the FBI. You know, as it so happens, I've got a book coming out next week on exactly this topic. The book is entitled Justice Corrupted, How the Left Has Weaponized the Legal System. And it starts with Richard Nixon. And Richard Nixon tried to use DOJ and the FBI and the IRS to target his enemies. And by and large, the system worked. The agencies refused to cooperate, and Nixon resigned in disgrace. Well, what Nixon tried to do, Barack Obama and Joe Biden succeeded in doing. Barack Obama put hard partisans into career positions at DOJ and the FBI, the intelligence agencies, and the IRS, and targeted his political enemies. It has now metastasized under Joe Biden. And let me encourage your listeners, go to Amazon or wherever you get your books, and you can pre-order the book that comes out next week, Justice Corrupted, How the Left has Weaponized the Legal System, that explains exactly how the Department of Justice has been turned into the political enforcers for this Biden White House.
Senator Cruz, I want to ask you an underlying issue here, a concern, a greater concern past just the immediate. I was in Texas last night speaking to a group, and everywhere I go, I'm sure you hear the same thing. People concerned about this lawlessness and a growing frustration. My concern is that if we give in to this lawlessness because there seems to be a two-track system of justice, our whole system, our republic implodes. We are a country that works because of the rule of law.
That is absolutely right, and the rule of law is something precious. Listen, I don't want a Republican Department of Justice. I don't want a Republican FBI. I don't want a Democrat DOJ or FBI. I want a DOJ and FBI that enforces the law regardless of party, regardless of who you are. And sadly, for the Democrats, it's a one-way ticket. So when it comes to Hillary Clinton and her violations of law, they turn a blind eye. But with Donald Trump, they sent an army of FBI agents to storm his home. And it is over and over again the double standard that is glaringly obvious. And it is remarkable. Merrick Garland is perfectly willing to have the DOJ function in a nakedly partisan way, and it's completely unjustifiable.
Senator, very quickly, I want to get your take on the vice president responding to the governor of Texas and other governors who are helping the nation see the depth of the problem of illegal immigration. Here she is responding on Late Night with Seth Meyers. Play clip number 10, please.
I just think it's an absolute dereliction of duty. If you see a problem, and if we agree that we need to address it, then if you're a leader, participate in a solution, right?
Senator, very quickly, where's the dereliction of duty?
Well, you know, there's an old line in Washington is that a gaffe is when a politician accidentally tells the truth. I got to say, Kamala accidentally told the truth. She's right. There is a dereliction of duty on her part and Joe Biden's part. Joe Biden refuses to enforce the law. Kamala is ostensibly the border czar. She's in charge of the border. You know, she hasn't been to the Rio Grande Valley once. 4.4 million people have crossed illegally. I've been down there over and over again. I've seen the children who were physically assaulted and sexually assaulted by the human traffickers. I've seen the women raped by the human traffickers. I've seen the dead bodies abandoned on Texas farms. And this arrogant, hypocritical Democrat doesn't care at all and says, well, gosh, when you send them to Martha's Vineyard, it disturbs my billionaire donors. The absolute hypocrisy of it. I'm sorry, Tony, but it makes me angry because I've seen the human suffering that their lawlessness and open borders are causing.
And it's coming to communities across America. That's why it has to stop. Senator Cruz, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, my friend. God bless.